ready to brave the wild. With me, your host, Paladino Joey. Brave the Wild is available on thesportstuff.com, iTunes, Stitcher, and Double Twist. I want to thank you for joining once again today. I'm going to start this show off a little different than normal because a man who has co-hosted this show in the past, off and on, sometimes came on, and most of the time not, due to scheduling, this and that, busy, lives far away and all that. But I want you to give Neil Nate Dog Thiesing, keep him in your thoughts and prayers today because he is in a very serious condition right now in the hospital, and he's in a medical-induced coma at the moment. I just want you to please pray for him. Those of you out there, please do pray for Neil Nate Dog Thiesing. He is a great friend, a great guy, somebody that wouldn't hurt a fly. Just one of the nicest people you'd ever meet. And I just want to say again, please keep him in your prayers right now. It's very important to me, and he's meant a lot to this show, of course, but more importantly, Neil, the person, the friend, just a great guy. So just again, want to give that right away. Some major thought, major part of the show right here at the introduction. So yes, it's very difficult for me to transition, but I'm dedicating this show to him. I was thinking I can't even do a show right now because it's scary, it's sad. But then it's like, no, absolutely do the show. Do it for Neil. So this is absolutely dedicated to Neil Thiesing right now. We'll open up only 2 games to review, 4 games to preview as the schedule gets a little bit busier once again. As obviously we're past the bye, we're past the All-Star break, all that. Eric Stahl's going to get a lot of positive conversation on this show. Columbus Blue Jackets. The Wild visit Columbus, one of the tougher places to play in the NHL for the Wild pretty much since the inception of these two clubs back in 2000. John Tortorella, we all know him. Cam Atkinson, who's had a pretty lousy season compared to last year. He killed us last year. I remember in that New Year's Eve game, which was devastating. Killed our beautiful winning streak and kept theirs going. And, of course, both teams didn't even get out of the first round of the playoffs. That's ridiculous, isn't it? This game went to a shootout, but Minnesota would emerge victorious. Columbus scored early, and that gave you a feeling like, here we go. They scored real early. Only a minute 16 into the game. David Savard, not sure if he's related to Dennis Savard, the great Hall of Fame player. Panarin, definitely a huge factor throughout this game. He assisted on David Savard's goal. It was like, oh boy, here we go. But then luckily, Jason Zucker would crash the net, basically, and shovel that thing in past Brodin. This was a very entertaining game that kept us feeling good. That first period, Columbus looked like the better team. It looked like we're going to just take on another road loss, as the Wild have been significantly better at home than on the road. Just like Timberwolves Explosion, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Do check out that podcast if you could. Both teams have been winning at home like crazy. The Wolves have won 12 in a row, or is it 11 in a row at home? Sorry, I'm going crazy here, but Jason Zucker, 20th goal of the season on the power play. Jonas Brodin getting the puck on net. Granlund, of course, getting the puck to Jonas Brodin in the first place. But Zucker basically crashing the net and getting the job done, and that was nice. Luckily, no goalie interference was called. It looked like there was a possibility of that, but thank God that it did not lead in that direction. Jonas Brodin had a nice tip pass, or tried to tip the puck in, and then it ended up going to Jason Zucker. It looked more like a pass, but no, it was a tip that ends up becoming an assist for Jonas Brodin. Charlie Coyle finally rewarded for all of his excellent play, as he would get a breakaway type of a situation as the puck would kind of be loose along the boards. Charlie Coyle was suddenly all by himself for at least a few seconds, and he was able to rifle it past Bobrovsky, his 5th goal of the season, and I felt so good for Charlie Coyle. That guy's long overdue. Heartbreaker at the end of that second period, which was a really good one. Tyler Ennis scored a goal. He did, but it was like seconds late. It's just heartbreaking, and it wasn't a goal only because the time ran out. You know how that works sometimes, like, oh yeah, I went in because the time had run out. No, that would have been a legitimate goal had the clock still been running. It's just such bad luck. Tyler Ennis, heartbreaking for him because it was a good play. It was a nice goal, and he just did not get it. So heartbreaking for him. An unbelievable second period for the Minnesota Wild, just dominating the Columbus Blue Jackets with the shots on goal in that one. Spectacular performance. The Wild ultimately wind up with 43 shots on goal. Bobrovsky would stop 41 of them. Bobrovsky was unbelievable throughout the entire game, but the Wild's aggression paid off. I mean, and that's what counts most. Disappointing, like just a few minutes, just about 2 minutes after Charlie Coyle, Panarin would get a pretty solid goal. 13th of the year. Panarin definitely the star of the game for the Columbus Blue Jackets in this one. Dubnyk just could not hold on to it, rifled it at Dubnyk, and it just went through. You know, he stopped it, slowed it down, but it still squirted through the legs there from Antemi Panarin. I'm almost going all these other anti-Laxon and I could go on forever. Anti-Menin years ago with the Wild. But then things would have to go to overtime as both goalies were strong throughout the night. Of course, Devan Dubnyk in net for the Wild. He was in net all week. Most likely we'll see Alex Stalock tonight. More than likely, as Devan Dubnyk great against the Golden Knights again. Wow, that's why we call this show the Golden Sweep. As we're sweeping the Golden Knights, and the Wild do get a sweep in these 2 games here. So 2 wins for the Wild. But this one, obviously, a thriller that did pay off nicely. It's unfortunate you have to go to the shootout. You couldn't finish on some really nice opportunities in overtime. Luckily, Devan Dubnyk was able to stop the opportunities that Columbus would get, as they would have a few. They hit the post several times in the game, which was, thank God for that. Several posts hit from Columbus, and that saved the day. Not surprising, I'll just call him Panarin. Artemi. I keep calling him going to Antemi. It's Artemi Panarin. Not surprising. He would be the one that would score the goal. He was the only guy that could really solve for the most part. He was just about the only guy who could solve Dubnyk throughout this game, but he was the only one that actually did solve Dubnyk in the shootout period. Both Chris Stewart and Zach Parise, some unbelievable shots. Of course, Coyle stopped and Koivu stopped, but Chris Stewart, what a nice play. And again, you see why he's in the NHL, why he's a goal scorer. His speed isn't there, and that's what's hurt him. That's why he's a bottom 6 forward now, compared to what he probably could have been. It's his hands. His hands are outstanding, and he has got some unbelievable hands, as he was able to basically lull Bobrovsky to sleep and put it up past him, left shoulder, and that was a beauty. Chris Stewart, and then Zach Parise, even more pretty. It ultimately was a backhand. Again, like unbelievable stick handling. Left himself enough space and was able to backhand it past Bobrovsky. It looked more like a wrister than a backhand, but it ultimately was a backhand when you look at the correct angle there. Zach Parise would win it at the end, as Devan Dubnyk did his job keeping the Wild in it, as unfortunately, again, Panarin scored right away after Chris Stewart. But then again, Dubnyk was able to stop Jokinen and Wenberg to keep the Wild in an advantage. So obviously a goal would end the game, not just having to stop the guy after that. So very nice to see Zach Parise finish there. Again, Parise showing signs, more and more signs of how close he is to really being the Zach Parise again that he was before. And we're talking the legitimate Zach Parise, not the one the last couple of years where he's had back problems and this and that. He looks more like the real Zach Parise. Again, it's just getting that timing, and of course a little puck luck, this and that, and Parise showing what he can do there on that shootout goal. So wonderful win for the Wild as we stay in playoff contention, or at least right below it. It's definitely a very, very difficult division and a difficult Western Conference. The Wild play a team that is the second best record in the NHL, a team that would have had the best record in the NHL had they beat the Wild in Xcel Energy Center. The Vegas Golden Knights are now 0-2 in Xcel Energy Center historically, which is strange when you sit down and think about that. As I'm trying to clear my throat here, I apologize. Basically hitting what you could call the dump button. My apologies. Vegas Golden Knights. Minnesota ends up winning on February the 2nd, day before Groundhog Day, I believe you could call it. 5-2 victory for the Minnesota Wild in Xcel Energy Center. How about that? I mean, what a beauty. 2 games in a row. Poor Malcolm Subban, as good as he's been this year, he must hate Xcel Energy Center. Man, as the Wild just score early and often in this one, 5-2 over the best team in the Western Conference. Everyone else has struggled against the Golden Knights, but the Wild, it's just another game, It's just another game, It's just an expansion team there, It ain't going to be a problem there. Tyler Ennis and Charlie Coyle rewarded again for their hard work. Ennis got his 7th goal of the year. That was nice. Felt great for him. Jonas Brodin, a much-needed assist, his 9th of the year. He would get 2 assists in the game at the end of the day. Eric Stahl scored early in the game, set the tone basically was like, here we come. We're not going to lose tonight. Eric Stahl's 21st, the all-star Eric Stahl, and he would get an empty net later. So 2 goals for Eric Stahl at the end of the day. Empty netter to kind of sort of ice things as Gerald Gallant pulled the goalie pretty early. Of course, former Detroit Red Wing tough guy. Gerald Gallant, more of a bottom six, kind of a strength, kind of a Foligno type, I guess you could say. Kind of a Marcus Foligno type for the Detroit Red Wings back in the day, 80s and early 90s. I remember him very well. Hated watching them beat the North Stars in the first round years ago. 92-93 season there. 91-92 season in that case. Jared Spurgeon would get his 7th goal of the year. Top line center Erik Haula. You got to see Mike Riley back in. Gustav Olofsson had played the last 5 games in his place. It's pretty much been a platoon between Mike Riley and Olofsson at the left shot defenseman on the third pairing. Nate Prosser's been the mainstay right shot defenseman, which is nice. You feel good for him. Obviously, everybody loves the guy, and I think he's a Wild player for life, other than that one game with the St. Louis Blues. One game with the Blues the last year. So good for him there. It was this year. He was on the Blues the year before, but they never actually played him yet. He was scratched in those games. Yule Eriksson Ek, by the way, I got to mention, was brought back up right away for the Columbus game. So I didn't actually even mention that. Kyle Rao stuck down there. Nito Niederreiter returns to play against the Vegas Golden Knights, so nice to see him back. He was tripped very early in the game, which was like, great. Now let's re-injure Nino Niederreiter. He's kind of had an oft-injured season, unfortunately. Missed a significant amount of time with ankle injuries and such. But an overall fun night. But then again, not surprising, Erik Haula would score after the Wild got it up to 3-0. Tyler Ennis, Charlie Coyle, Eric Stahl, of course, the goal scorers. Yule Eriksson Ek with his 7th assist on the Charlie Coyle goal. Feeling good for that third line as they've been playing very well. Yule Eriksson Ek, remember last week with Pavel Bunet's blog written, was just his defensive numbers are number 1 on the entire team. I mean, if he's not at least another Mikko Koivu to this team, I'd be very surprised. And I think he's got more skill than Mikko Koivu. It's just a matter of, getting his timing in the NHL, all that, getting his timing and confidence, and of course, again, getting more opportunities. You got to get on the power play, more scoring opportunities. I don't think the third line is a poor scoring line most of the time, especially you got Coyle and Eriksson Ek is pretty good, and occasionally Zach Parise's on the third line, but lately he's had some really nice chemistry with Eric Stahl. It's the other guy on that line that's been changing a bit. You've seen Tyler Ennis. He was back up there recently, and you saw, of course, Daniel Winnick, who's back down to the fourth line. Tyler Ennis has been back up on the top line. It's not because he's a top 6 player necessarily. It's just, it's a fit. It's the way things are set up right now with the Wild. And, of course, that's how we know that. Nino Niederreiter has been up there as well. Most of the time, actually. Niederreiter was back up there most recently. Tyler Ennis and Coyle and Ek played together last night. So, yeah, you saw a fun overall night. You saw Erik Haula score his 4th goal of the season. Chris Stewart, who had been playing fairly well, he was one of the scratches. And, of course, the Gustav Olofsson, left shot defenseman, was the odd man out in this particular night. So, yeah, you still saw Foligno and... and, of course, Winnick, who's not been scratched this year, so I'm happy for that. Winnick is a guy that deserves ice time, even in a fourth-line role or whatever it is. Daniel Winnick, always strong out there. Foligno, Winnick, and Cullen on that fourth line last night. Of course, it's always interchangeable, this and that. Yule Eriksson Ek managed to get 15 minutes on that third line, so strong play from him. He won half of his face-offs, couple shots on goal. Charlie Coyle's been so aggressive, and he won all of his face-offs as well for that third line. It depends. Coyle and Ek kind of interchangeable. They're both centers. They're both wings. They can be both on that third line, so they've been kind of back and forth with that over the course of this season. But Coyle's definitely been attacking that net more and more and more, putting the puck on net more and more. You want to continue to see that from both guys here, Coyle and Eriksson Ek, both very capable of being higher goal scorers than they've been so far for the Minnesota Wild. And they're going to get rewarded, and Coyle has been rewarded the past couple games, goals in the past couple games. Very nice to see from Coyle. So that's great. And, of course, Yule Eriksson Ek, Yuletide. Yule Eriksson Ek with his 7th assist on the season. He's now at 8 points. So kind of slowly but surely climbing the ladder to bigger and better things. He did get an assist. He did register an assist in his one game with the Iowa Wild the past week, so I will mention that right here and right now. He did register an assist. Iowa Wild is when we get into the prospect conversation in the next segment. Incredible night last night over the Bakersfield Condors, 8-0. 8-0. Nicholas Svedberg with a shutout, and wow. Yeah, we'll talk more about that in the next segment. You wish you could see more and more points from the actual prospects on the team, but yeah, you did see some. It as it continued to go, it was like 5-0, and then it just continued to go up, up, up. So great, 8-0 victory. So nice to see a Minnesota-based Minnesota/Iowa team do as well. It'll be the team on the positive side of an 8-0 game. Other than that Game 6 North Stars, which is obviously a memory we don't want to think about much longer. Mikael Granlund a little quiet this week, but still he got shots on goal. He had chances. It just didn't happen this time around. But again, you saw good play from him, strong play from that second line, Koivu, Granlund, Zucker. You saw strong play from them, but they no reward this time around, unfortunately. So, but their time will come. They'll probably score a good amount of points, I bet, this upcoming week. Is that line obviously one of the best in the NHL when they're on their game? They're as good as it gets. The Koivu, Zucker, and Granlund line. Very, very popular. Been happy again with how things went this week. Mike Modano award for me is going to go to Eric Stahl. He did get an assist also in this game. 3-point night. Very, very fun. Very entertaining. Eric Stahl, the All-Star, deserving All-Star. Congratulations on getting into the All-Star game again for the 5th time in his career. 22 goals in the year. He's on pace for 35. And again, anybody that thought there was going to be a letdown this year from Eric Stahl's renaissance last year, doesn't look like it. The renaissance continues for Eric Stahl. Just had some down years. It's last year with Carolina and in New York, which wasn't a good fit. And here he is at the Minnesota Wild, and it's a wonderful fit. He's been a wonderful fit for the Wild. And, of course, this is the closest team to home other than, I suppose, the Winnipeg Jets, which are, yeah, it's pretty much Minnesota and Winnipeg, very close to Thunder Bay up there as you continue on the road with Lake Superior up there around the Lake Superior shoreline into what is Ontario, Canada. Manitoba's right above Minnesota, but as you head slightly east, it becomes Ontario, Canada. So there it is, Eric Stahl, the Thunder Bay native, getting another Mike Modano award, and a well-deserved one. This one's platinum laced. The James Shepard Memorial, I don't think there is one this week. I wasn't really disappointed with anybody. Gustav Olofsson, when he's been out there, he looks like an NHL player. Of course, nothing much beyond an NHL player, but an NHL player. Joel Eriksson Ek, I could never give it to him. He doesn't screw anything up. He's fantastic. Charlie Coyle has been strong. Brodin didn't screw anything up too bad. This last week he had a rough game. Last couple of weeks, Suter had a rough game in Pittsburgh last time around. Dumba didn't have any major gaffes. He added an assist this past week, of course, or this past game with the Golden Knights, and of course even Ryan Suter added an assist. Dumba had a couple assists actually in that one. And Mike Riley, by the way, I got to mention the power play goal that opened things up halfway through the first period, which got us feeling real good again, like we're going to beat the Golden Knights again. Mike Riley, what a nice pass, a Granlund-esque pass to Eric Stahl. It was like Eric Stahl was going to score on that goal, and Mike Riley deserves a ton of credit. He was actually on the power play, was Mike Riley, with Matt Dumba. So an interesting pairing on the power play, and that's great. Good for Mike Riley. And see what happens when you're on the power play, when you're out there with Eric Stahl in a man advantage. See what happens. See, Mike Riley was stuck at 7 assists forever, since like November. And there it is, eighth assist. Congratulations, Mike Riley. Welcome back to the Minnesota Wild and out of that doggone press box. Congratulations, Mike Riley. Great pass, and good for him to open up the scoring for the Minnesota Wild. So there it is. Let's wrap up segment number 1. 2 games, but a lot to talk about. And again, please keep Neil Nate Dogg Thiesing in your thoughts and prayers. We are back here on Brave the Wild, segment number 2. We're going to preview 3 games. I said 4 initially, but it's 3 because the Chicago game is on Saturday. And just like the Dallas game tonight is Saturday, So, yeah, why would I preview next Saturday's game when I'll be recording before it? So, silly me. 3 games to preview: Dallas Stars, St. Louis Blues, and Arizona Coyotes. Could be a positive week, could be something else. But the way the Wild are playing right now, hopefully a very positive week. Again, let's avoid any swoons. I suppose our swoon was kind of a half of the season, a lesser swoon, but a less fun team to watch for a while. And now this team is playing much better. In the 4-game series with these two teams, Dallas Stars, of course, the Wild and Dallas have only played 1 game so far. Minnesota won that one 4-2 in Xcel Energy Center. Now the Minnesota Wild head to Dallas, a place that was just about impossible for us to win in the past. It took till forever, just a couple of years ago, for the Wild to finally win again. After 2001, the Wild finally won there 2 years ago for the first time since then, since before September 11th, if I remember correctly. Yes, it was early 2001, as in way back in the inaugural season for the Wild, 2001, before September 11th. That's a long time ago. That's a record that stood for a long time. Minnesota and Dallas, of course. Dallas Stars are playing fairly well. Minnesota's playing very well. 4 out of our last 5. Dallas is 3 out of their last 5 so far. They beat Arizona on Feb the 1st. That's the most recent. Buffalo, they crushed 7-1. Florida crushed 6-1. Then they got beat 4-1 by Toronto, 3-0 by Jonathan Quick and the Los Angeles Kings. At least I hope it was Jonathan Quick and not Darcy Kemper. Wouldn't that be something? And, of course, most recently beat the hapless Arizona Coyotes. That's our opponent coming up on Thursday. This is a matchup that, it has its ups and downs. I think the Wild can win this one. I think the Wild better win this one at the end of the day. Yeah, it's cool to see Eric Stahl. Mikhail Granlund's already got 40 points. Good for him. Eric Stahl's at 46. Dallas with some scores, of course. Now John Klingberg, the defenseman, is the leading scorer for the Dallas Stars. He's doing a little Brent Burns impression. Only 6 goals, which, Brent Burns tends to score more like close to 20 at the end of the day by the time he's done with the season. But 49 points for John Klingberg, one of the top super defensemen in the league. Alexander Rudolov, who's emerged this season in a big way, 48 points for Alexander Rudolov. Good for him. Interesting. He has definitely emerged. He was a first-round pick in 2004. He's kind of come around after not much of a career beforehand. Some decent numbers, but he's really having a hell of a year. Almost a career high in goals already. He had some games with Nashville, and then he went back to Russia, and then came back to Nashville, and then it was gone for 5 years again. It was like about 3-4 year stretches where he went back to Russia, came back to the NHL. Last year, 54 points with the Montreal Canadiens. 2 years ago. No, that was last year. 54 points with the Canadiens, and now with Dallas. Definitely on a career stretch here. 48 points in only 52 games. Outstanding so far for Alexander Rudolov. He's been kind of in and out. He's actually an older guy, 86, and I hate saying somebody born in 86 is an older guy, but it kind of is what it is. I'm not getting any younger, folks, so... He's just in and out of the NHL. Russia and NHL, I don't know. I guess they hate us over there, but okay, I better not even go there. Tyler Pitlick, of course, son of Lance Pitlick. Yes, sir. Former Gover, former NHLer with Ottawa and others, of course. Successful career in the NHL. 17 points for Tyler Pitlick. Klingberg, though, definitely the Mike Modano. They'd call it Mike Modano, too, unfortunately. But the Mike Modano Award winner for the... Dallas Stars so far this season. Ben and Sagan, Jamie Benn, Tyler Sagan. Yeah, I know. 47 for Ben, 44 for Sagan. Those are the 2 stars, but Klingberg and Rudolov have definitely come around. Obviously, Klingberg was already a great player, but he's been on an absolute tear during this positive stretch for the Dallas Stars the past month or so. And that's one of the reasons why the Stars are very much in playoff contention. Of course, they have a good coach. Kind of. I mean, obviously, no, I know. Ken Hitchcock's the guy that got them the Stanley Cup. Letton's having a better season this year in a backup role. And Ben Bishop, the main guy, has 4 shutouts on the year, but definitely some inconsistency. Kind of like Dubnyk, I guess you could say, in a sense. He's got the shutouts, but he's also got some inconsistent games. 2.47 goals against average isn't that shabby, though. 91.7 save percentage. Both Kerry Letton and Ben Bishop definitely have been solid in that all season for the Dallas Stars. And again, one reason why the Stars are doing well. And again, Klingberg having an awesome season. He's a plus 14. Radek Faska, 21 positive in the plus minus. So good for him in a huge way. He's a plus 21 for the Dallas Stars. A very winnable game for the Wild, I believe. It's a home game for the Stars. This is a tough one. It's a tough stretch. You got the Stars, obviously, in St. Louis. You got to go to St. Louis. None of these games are going to be that easy. The one that's the most winnable, it's got to be Arizona. I mean, what else is the most winnable game of this week? It's hard to pick a 3-0 week for this team, even though they've been playing much better. And you got 2 road games against division foes, national television with the St. Louis game, Mike Yeo and all that. Hopefully a win for the Wild. Then we host the Arizona Coyotes. You lose that one, which can be one of those trap games for the Wild. We've done it before. We better not do it again. Boy, it would be a very, very impressive win if the Wild could pull this off tonight. Alex Stalock will be in net, so you'll have a fresh goalie in net. That's the good part. He hasn't been in the net for a while, like over a week here with the All-Star break and all that. Man, I want to think positive here. Which one? I mean, I'm thinking it's going to be a 2-1 week. 3-0 is like too homerish for me. And if I'm wrong, great. Go ahead and be wrong, right? But, boy, this has been such a tough matchup over the years. St. Louis, I think, is dropping off. Of course, Mike Yeo knows as well, this and that, and we've had tough matchups with him, but we've had a little more success this year than last. I guess I'm going to pick a loss tonight. I think maybe if the Wild possibly used up all their scoring last night with Vegas. It happened last time around when the Wild beat Vegas. We had an icky game the next one. Maybe this one won't be so icky. Hopefully the Wild could squeak out a point in this one. But I think Dallas is going to win something like 3-2, a well-goaltended game. But unfortunately, the Wild not getting rewarded. Hopefully, the Wild could squeak a point out in the shootout, something like that. But I'm picking a 3-2 victory for the Dallas Stars in this one. Most likely guy to score for the Wild is Erik Haula. No, I'm just kidding. Zach Parise, I think, is going to get rewarded for his hard work. Or I want to think, actually, Joel Eriksson Ek, even more so. Joel Eriksson Ek will score his second goal of the season against the Dallas Stars. He's been strong. He's been good. Charlie Coyle, don't be surprised to see him continue what he's been doing and all that. Eric Stahl, certain guys, they've just been on fire. But I'm going to go with Joel Eriksson Ek. I'm going to pick a very wild one here, literally. A well-played game by both teams. I just think Dallas will be slightly better down the stretch. A 3-2 win for the Wild, even though Wild have been playing very well against the Dallas Stars of late. I don't think you're going to sweep them this season, though. And this might be the one loss of the year at the end of the day. We'll see. In a back-to-back against Vegas and all that. So let's head to Tuesday, the 6th of February. The Minnesota Wild host the St. Louis Blues. Mike Yeo, Vladimir Tarasenko. These are all teams we're extremely familiar with. Guys like, again, frickin' Jake Allen. Yeah, but also Carter Hutton, for crying out loud. Carter Hutton. I like him better than Jake Allen. And, man, has he been a godsend for my fantasy team. Carter Hutton is the best backup goalie, ever. I mean, he's unbelievable. And he's been getting a decent amount of games in net. Jake Allen's back to being Jake Allen. Mediocre. 2.72. That's why the Wild should have beat the St. Louis Blues last year. It drives me nuts that he was able to have that type of little stretch against us. And then, of course, Nashville kicks his ass in the next round. Every bleep and time the Wild run into a red-hot goalie. It's a guy who's just okay. He's okay, but then he's having this magical stretch. And then here comes the next round, and no, they didn't win, did they? They were done right away. It's so typical, and it's so bleeping frustrating. I can't deal with it. A guy who's more likely to be like the red-hot goalie right now is Carter Hutton. Save percentage, almost 95%. Almost 95%. He has started 8 games. He is 13-4. Carter Hutton is the best backup goalie in the league, and that's why he's had 18 starts already in this amount of time. He's had to replace Jake Allen 4 times on the season, if you can believe it. Carter Hutton did have a couple stinkers, and Jake Allen did replace him twice, and I do remember some of them. Just, you put him in, and he gave up 5 goals. I couldn't believe it. It happened recently with the run he's been having, but despite that icky game, still got a goals against average well below 2. Save percentage, almost 95%. Unbelievable. Carter Hutton is, wow, he's been a wonderful godsend for the St. Louis Blues. He's one of the reasons why the Blues are still a division leader right now. Because if Jake Allen was the main guy and Carter Hutton was what he was in the past, just mediocre at best as a backup goalie, yuck. Carter Hutton's going to get paid this offseason, I got to think. Someone's going to go after him in a trade or a contract extension, depending on his statistics, his status there. I haven't looked into his status with his contract at the moment. We'll get to that one of these days. Braden Shen is officially leading the team in scoring at the moment. Vladimir Tarasenko, bad Vlad. Both of them leading them in goals at 21, but Schenn with a few more assists on the year. 51 for Brayden Schenn. Good for him. Tarasenko, 47 points on the season. Paul Stastny having a fairly strong year. He's stayed healthy all season. That's huge. Good for him. Again, he's played every game. Good for Paul Stastny. Alexander Steen has stayed healthy most of the year, this and that. Kyle Brodziak, the fourth-line center, who's third or fourth line, bottom six center, penalty kill master, face-off king, all that. He's been very good throughout the season. He's not doing as good in face-offs right now as he did in the past. Paul Stastny's been the top face-off guy for the Blues this season, and he is the first-line center for the most part. But Brodziak, overall, again, has been... he's been a solid player, and he always magically scores against us, too, which is extremely frustrating. Winnable game for the Wild. St. Louis hasn't been playing as well generally, but then again, the last week or so, they've been okay. You lose 5-2 to Arizona, though. Yuck. That was on Jan the 20th. The 23rd, 3-0 over Ottawa. Another shutout for Hutton. Yep, he's just been beautiful. Colorado, 3-1. They beat the Colorado Avalanche, that is. Montreal, 3-1. Carey Price and the Montreal Canadiens. I don't know what's wrong with them. They're weird. I don't know what happened to them. Boston, who's the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference behind Tampa Bay this year. That's a big shocker. 3-1 loss in Boston on the 1st of February for the St. Louis Blues. Winnable game for the Wild. I'm going to pick a win. I just have a good feeling about this one. I hope Jake Allen's in net. If you see Carter Hutton in net, say your prayers. Hope and pray to God that Devin Dubnyk is up for the challenge in that one, because I got to think Dubnyk will be in net against the Blues, even though sometimes you wonder, is that a good thing with the way things turned out last year? But then again, it's not like he was bad. It's just he got bad. You know, he was great in the first couple of games, and then as the series progressed, things went down, and he got less and less consistent and more tired. And you got to think he was exhausted from those first 2 games, and his confidence was shaken a bit, because it's like, I did all that and we still lost. I mean, that's got to get in your head. No matter how good, no matter how strong-minded you are, no matter how even keel you are, stuff is going to catch up to you in a situation like that. Minnesota very close to catching up to the St. Louis Blues at this moment, and that's a good thing. Only a few points behind the hated St. Louis Blues are the Wild. Only 4 points behind. 1 point behind the Stars for the top wild card spot, and a game in hand, and 2 games in hand with St. Louis. We love to talk about games in hand, don't we, when we regard the Minnesota Wild when they're fighting for a playoff berth. Oh, games in hand, 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 games in hand. I think the team that's going to win this division is the Nashville Predators at the end of the day. They have 3 games in hand with the versus the Winnipeg Jets, and are only 2 points behind. So I think Nashville deserves to win the division again, but we'll see. Carter Hutton, oh God, he's one of the best goalies in the league right now, and he's still not necessarily the starter for the Blues. If Jake Allen's in net, I think the Wild win 4-2, the most likely guy to score in the game. Let's go with, let's go with Eric Staal, the guy who's been Mr. Consistent, Mr. Great, Mr. Awesome for the Wild all season. I think he'll be the more likely guy to score in the game. It'll be a solid one, maybe even a multi-goal night for him, an empty netter, 4-2 victory for the Wild. I'm thinking Jake Allen will be in net, and I'm thinking the Wild will do a good job against him. It's funny how the Wild beat him up pretty good a couple years before, and then last year, again, what took place. But, of course, the history is history. We're going to leave that alone. I think the Wild can get the job done against Brayden Schenn and the St. Louis Blues. If Carter Hutton's in net, it's going to be a close one, and you got to hope for the best. Maybe a 2-1 victory for the Wild. I hope. Score 2 goals against Carter Hutton, and hope Devin Dubnyk is phenomenal on the other side of the ice, and the defense is good. You get the blocks and all that from the Ryan Suters, from the even Matt Dumba gets some blocks. That would be helpful. But obviously Suter and Spurgeon are the 2 best defensemen on the team. There's no doubt there. I'll go with a 4-2 win for the Wild, though. I'm thinking of Jake Allen in net. So, because, of course, Mike Yule probably figured Jake Allen's been great against the Wild the past year, but the Minnesota Wild will get the job done. Let's look at the season series really quick. A 6-3 win for St. Louis. Not way back, in November the 25th. Minnesota, a close, hard-fought battle, 2-1 over the Blues on the 2nd of December, Not all that long ago. Tough one there, but a nice win for the Wild. And it was Jake Allen and Ed in that one. Interesting. So I thought that might have been Carter Hutton, but the Wild got the job done, and Devin Dubnyk with 41 saves. So that's what I'm hoping will happen for the Wild, that Devin Dubnyk will be up for the challenge again. So that one must have felt good for Dubnyk, of course, for the Wild. The season series is tied. We host the Blues, of course, on the 6th of Jan. I keep calling it February, and we wrap up the season series in Xcel Energy Center on the 27th of February. So let's move forward. Arizona Coyotes. Arizona Coyotes, a team looking for the number one pick in the draft. Yeah, it's pretty much about their season right now. Shane Doan is finally gone. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just the fact that, man, it's unbelievable that he was still there. All these years, Shane Doan was still there. He was a Winnipeg Jet. You know, the original Winnipeg Jets, the ones that are the Coyotes now. Yeah, that's crazy. 12-30 on the season. This is an Xcel Energy Center. There is no excuse for the Wild to not get the job done. Antti Raanta, after having an awful start to the season, has stepped up a little bit. Luis Domingue, who has been better in the past, has been horrible this season. Scott Wedgwood has not been a whole lot better. Antti Raanta, to me, is the only goalie on the roster that's deserving to be in the net at the moment. Clayton Keller is leading the team in scoring. Derek Stepan, who went there in the offseason out of New York. Boy, I bet he's regretting that one. Alex Goligoski, of course, former Gopher. Former Dallas Star as well, defenseman, solid player, 22 points in the year, not a whole lot in front of him. He's had 40-point seasons. He's not going to get it this year. Boy, I mean, only 36 points from their leading scorer, 14 goals for Keller, but also 14 for Brandon Perlini, who's kind of been the Jason Zucker for the Arizona Coyotes. 14 goals, only 6 assists on the season. A pretty yucky roster for the most part. Of course, some good players here and there. Clayton Keller, Stepan, and Alex Goligoski have definitely been the the diamonds in the rough, literally in the desert there for the Arizona Coyotes. Two out of their last 5, though, they beat St. Louis on the road. That's impressive. That must have been really frustrating for the Blues. And they beat the Islanders at home. Otherwise, a 3-2 loss to Nashville, 2-1 loss to Columbus, and a 4-1 spanking by the Stars on February the 1st. This has got to be a win for the Wild. Don't let this be a trap game. I don't care who's in net for the Wild. Is it Alex Stalock, Devin Dubnyk? The Wild need to win the game. It's got to be something like 4-2, 4-1. I'm going to pick a 4-1 victory for the Wild, and I hope that's it. Maybe even a shutout, 3-0, something like that. Minnesota wins the game. Most likely guy to score is going to be Jason Zucker. He's going to continue his tear, continue his points. Not a point streak, because it did end last night. He was on like an 8-game point streak, and it ended, unfortunately, for Jason Zucker against his hometown club. So that figures. He didn't get a goal or an assist. I got to quit picking him to score against them, because he doesn't score against the Vegas Golden Knights. Maybe he will in Las Vegas, though, coming up in March. 4-1 win for Minnesota. Most likely got to score. I will go with Jason Zucker. I think the Wild should get the job done. Not the best goaltending, though. Of course, Antti Raanta is capable of something. Maybe we'll go with a 3-1 win, because, I mean, Ranta's okay. But I'm hoping for a 4-1 win, maybe 3-1, but Raanta will get credited for only 3 of them. Maybe an empty netter or something like that late in the game. But who knows? Maybe Eric Stahl adds another one, or Mikhail Granlund, something like that. But I'm going to go with we'll say 3-1, 4-1 win for the Wild. At the end of the day, again, Jason Zucker most likely got a score in this one. So dragging this out a little too much. My apologies. Let's get on with the prospects. So here we are. Time to talk about the prospects for the Minnesota Wild. Jumping into Iowa. Been a positive stretch for them of late. Sam Anas and Kyle O'Reilly officially leading the team in scoring. Again, an 8-0 win last night. Couple assists for Justin Klutz, the future fourth-line center, maybe even third-line center for the Wild. I think he will be one day. Bottom six center for the Wild, of course. 35 points on the season, tied with Sam Anas for tops on the team in assists. 21 on the season for Klutz. Sam Anas, again, setting guys up, but also leading the club in scoring. Wonderful story has been Sam Anas, who would be hopefully in the NHL one of these days, hopefully very soon. I think he deserves a call-up. Ryan Murphy is at 18 points. Brennan Mennel adding another assist in last night's blowout over the Bakersfield Condors. 19 points now in the year for the young Brennan Mennel. That's great. 20 years old. He is stepping up nicely. Right shot defenseman of the future for the Minnesota Wild. Kyle Rao adding a goal last night. 25 points for him. Luke Cunnin managed to squeeze in an assist. Mario Lucia, 2 assists. Good for him. 15 points on the year. So nice to see Lucia getting something going. Luke Cunning's only played in 27 games, 38 games for Mario Lucia, both of them at 15 points on the year. Sealer adding another assist. He had a strong week here, 11 points on the season. Sealer and Susie, the points are starting to pile up a little bit for them as they've been so quiet for so long, and they're getting the points now. So good for them. Susie had 9 points on the season. He scored his first a professional goal. Now, Steeler had a goal and an assist last night. How cool is that? And Susie most recently scored his first professional goal for the Iowa Wild this past week. 9 points on the year for Carson Susie. Good for him. That feels great. And, of course, Nicholas Svedberg getting his second shutout on the season. He's now at 2.56 goals against average, 12-8 for Iowa. Steve Michalik, 9-3. Great record, but not quite the beautiful statistics of Svedberg. But again, he's more consistent than Svedberg. Svedberg, it might be like the Manny Fernandez in a sense, where he can be hot and cold. And then Michalik is kind of like the Dwayne Rollison, more stable, this and that. So again, that 9-3 record is definitely something that deserves notice when you're talking about the Iowa Wild and a possible Minnesota Wild backup one day. Chase Lang, he's had a nice couple weeks, and of course did Pavel Jennings. He had a 3-point week last week for the Rapid City Rush. So those two guys, again, both draft picks, later round draft picks. 6th round for Lang, 7th round for Jennings in the 2014 draft. The two main prospects that are on the Rapid City Rush at the moment, Pavel Jennings right now, 26 points for the Rapid City Rush. Again, a 3-point game when he returned to the Rapid City Rush last week. Chase Lang has been fairly consistent down there, very inconsistent with Iowa. I remember like 20 games and like 1 point pretty much. Very frustrating for him, the right wing for the Iowa Wild and now Rapid City Rush. 10 points in 15 games for Rapid City. So good for him. At least he's stepping up in the ECHL. Hopefully he can get it going in the AHL as he needs to get closer to if he has any hope of ever skating in the National Hockey League. He's got to step it up in a big way. But at least they're doing something in the ECHL at this stage. So good for them. As you look around in the college ranks, and of course the OHL, Ivan Ladnia had a quiet week, only 1 assist. He's currently at 53 points in 50 games, 33 of them assists. So good for him there. Nick Swaney, Minnesota Duluth, gosh, that guy, he's had a nice run. No points last night. He's at 16 on the season in 20 games. Nick Swaney again out of Lakeville. Brandon Duhaime, he's just a playmaker, isn't he? He's a left winger for Providence. He just plain out flat out gets assists. Just about every game he manages to get an assist. He's already 6 points ahead of last year, 18 in 29 games. 13 of those assists for Brandon Duhaime. So more of a playmaker at the left wing position, which is quite unusual. Dmitry Sokolov continuing his tear, literally 2 points a game for the Barrie Colts. He has been crazy since he went to the Barrie Colts. Literally 20 points in the 10 games he's played, and that puts him at 58 in 55 games, or 45 games on the season. He has been outstanding since moving to the Barrie Colts, and great move. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for moving Dmitry Sokolov to the Barrie Colts of the Ontario Hockey League. Jordan Greenway managed to add another assist and a goal, 24 points on the season. So nice to see the big man, Jordan Greenway. Now he's at 9 goals, only 1 less than last year, and still 10 games less than last season still. So here we go. Jordan Greenway probably going to have a career year for Boston University, and hopefully we'll be skating for at least the Iowa Wild in the spring here as we head into March and June post NCAA tournament if Boston University makes it. It doesn't look like they're going to, unfortunately. Nick Boca never factors in the scoring, nor does Jack Sadik. Sadik's at 6 points on the season, all assists, and Boca is at only 4 points on the season. He's really dropped off in a big way. Actually, Sadik has had a couple goals this year, believe it or not. So he's at 7 points on the season. My apologies. I got behind, kind of stuck in the past there. Jacob Golden scored his first goal in the Ontario Hockey League this past week against 5th round pick for the Wild this last spring. Finally scored his first goal, and he's had 6 assists during the course of the season. 7 points for the stay-at-home defenseman for the London Knights. Nice to see Jacob Golden, though, getting his first goal of the first goal of his career in the Ontario Hockey League. Any more major ones to check in? Yes, Belpedio, another 2-point night. The captain and star and senior for Miami University Red Knights. 2 points again for Luis Belpedio. 9 goals, career high. 15 assists, career high. 24 points, career high in 25 games. Only one more game than last year, as of course he missed a significant amount of time down the stretch last season. When he was on pace for a strong year, it was heartbreaking to see. But Luis Belpedio, man, can't wait to see him. Right shot defenseman, again, out of Skokie, Illinois, playing for the Miami of Ohio Red Knights. Third round pick in 2014. Luis Belpedio, 21 years of age, and a bright future, I think. Boy, he is really kicking ass over there in Miami, Ohio. Will they make the tournament? I have no idea, but boy, oh boy. Oh, I cannot wait to see him signed, at least with the Iowa Wild, to see what he can do at the next level. Very, very exciting for me personally to see what he can do. He is a guy I've got high hopes on a team that definitely needs another right shot defenseman in their system, at least in the minor leagues and into the National Hockey League. Something to look forward to in the next year or two here with Luis Belpedio. And I've had a frog in my throat all day, and I apologize. I don't know what happened, but maybe it's the way I slept. So my apologies for that. But generally speaking, that's pretty much it when you look at the prospects. Of course, we know about Kaapo Kähkönen, who's been outstanding in Finland thus far, keeping that goals against average right around 2. He's been great in those Finnish leagues over there. Still age 20, got a bright future ahead of him. 21, actually, in his case. Other guys like, of course, Kirill Kaprizov. Scoring has been down a teeny tiny bit the past few weeks, but yeah, still, we know who he is and what he's capable of, and nothing new to say, unfortunately. Svetlikov, same thing. You know, I mean, there's just no news on them, and nothing more to say. Don't really need to. Nothing exciting with their numbers. It's not like they got like 6 goals this past week or anything, so I'm going to kind of leave that alone for the moment. Looking at guys that are closer to coming to the NHL at this stage. Of course, Kaprizov would be probably in the NHL if he was able to, if we were able to sign him, but at least we got a little dialogue the last month or so. Avery Peterson has not been around for the Duluth Bulldogs of late. Nick Sweeney, though, has been doing a hell of a job, and good for him. Duluth Bulldogs. Quiet, though, this past night. The 2 players for the Duluth Bulldogs that are in the Wild, I just call them the Blue Dogs, the Bulldogs that are in the Wild system. So that pretty much wraps up the prospect segment here. Want to thank all of you so much for listening to the show. I want to encourage you to join it. The Facebook page, the Twitter account. Want to thank Hockey Podcast for tweeting the show, Vince Germano for retweeting the show. Thank you guys so much for tweeting it out to your followers. Really appreciate it very much. Those of you out there, also, please tell your friends about the show if you like it. If you want to support this show, tell your friends. It's greatly appreciated. Write a positive rating on iTunes if you could. It would only help in a big way, and I'll give you a big shout out and thank you. And when I check it out, I'll mention your name on the air here. Also, again, encourage you to follow the Twitter account at Brave the Wild, at Brave the Wild. Facebook.com/Brave the Wild is the Facebook account. Please give that a like. Join that page, comment on there. Greatly appreciated. Join in the conversation when we post blogs or articles or whatever, or just conversate about news. The Wild sign Kirill Kaprizov. Oh, wouldn't that be great? Yeah, that'll be something that'll probably generate some conversation. Also, again, there's the phone line, 209-736-7877, 209-736-7877. It is a voicemail. Do treat it as such. Mention you're calling in for Brave the Wild or your statement, shout-out, comment, question, and opine on the show. One final thing before I talk about the audio submission route is got to give a shout out to MNW Players. MNW Players is another Facebook page that I can encourage you to join. Just look it up, facebook.com/MNW Players. Look it up, like it, and conversate on there. Pavel Burnett and Marek Skyba run the page. They also run an official website as well, MNWPlayers.com, where they talk about everything from Chase Lang all the way up to Eric Stahl, if you get the idea. The lower prospects all the way up to the top line for the Minnesota Wild. So throughout the Minnesota Wild system, it's everything Wild related from top to bottom. So beautiful website, something I enjoy very much because I love to keep up with the prospects because you like to think that there's hope for the future. That's why I talk about the prospects on this show. You know, I'm just sitting here waiting, hoping one day you're going to hear Nick Steeler got called up, Carson Soucy got called up. You're excited. You're hoping that maybe this guy will be better than the other guy. And then there you go. The team is better because of it. And then here's Luke Kunin, finally up with the Wild to stay. And he's going to continue to emerge. And then Eriksson Ek starts scoring goals. Kunin starts scoring goals. That's what I'm looking forward to. Kaapo Kokkonen ends up being a really nice goalie out of Finland, and he ends up at least starting as a backup and then moves up, and oh my God, he's in the Wild system, he's in Iowa, and now he's in Minnesota, oh my, and he's getting better and better, and there's your goalie of the future, Kaapo Kokkonen, or Alex Stezka out of Czech Republic. You never know. He's not doing as good as Kokkonen right now, but you never know. Maybe he'll have a crazy, great story. Pavel Zinis just explodes, and there he is in the NHL, and he ends up being a good player. You just never know how things happen. Luis Belpedio, I can't wait. Again, just watch him end up being a very successful NHL player, maybe 35, 40-point guy for the Wild from that right shot defenseman position. And then maybe somebody else is expendable. You can make a trade and bring in some more draft picks and do it again and just get better and better. And that's the hope for this franchise, to have some staying power in this league, to not only get better but stay better, that type of thing, rather than lull in mediocrity forever. That's the hope, that somebody will emerge as the star of this team at some point. Of course, Eric Staal is a nice star to have right now, and we thank him for the wonderful production he's brought this team the last year and a half. Now it's just about staying healthy and keep it up, buddy. Keep it up. Zach Parise, all that, getting the timing back and the scoring. It's going to be a tough ride here. Chicago's already got 55 points. They're 4 games above 500. Chicago's in last place in the division. You just sit and look at that and you're like, what? And yet they still have a winning record. So anything can happen in the next week or two. Anything. I mean, it can change so fast. So there it is. That'll wrap up this show. Again, let's finish things with the audio submission route. Use the free voice recording application on every smart device on the planet. They all have it. There's downloadable ones. There's ones that are already built into your smart device. Treat it like a phone call, record it, save it, and then email it to paladinolive@yahoo.com. paladinolive@yahoo.com. I will then convert it into an MP3 file with Zamzar.com, and bada bing, bada boom, it's right here in a fan interaction segment. So it would be great to hear your voice on my show. Would be awesome. And you can hear your voice too, right? You could say, that's me. Why not, man? So that's the goal. The Facebook page, the Twitter account, and the email address will all be in the show description for copy and paste, or copy or click this and that. It'll take you directly to where you need to go and rock and roll. So with that, I'm going to wish all of you a good, safe week. Stay warm, as it's been very cold around here of late, in other parts of the world possibly. So please do enjoy. Hopefully the Wild can have a winning record this week. I think they will. A sweep would be absolutely spectacular, though, wouldn't it? One final thing before I sign off, though. Again, please remember to keep Nate Dogg Thiesing in your prayers, because he needs your prayers right now in a big way, and God bless him. And again, I dedicate this show to Nate Dogg Thiesing. Take care, everybody.